a lot of traders engage in knitting, in working on clothes for students, you know, their school attire and all of that. And this morning, it is thick smoke, raging fire, a lot of destroyed property, and many sad faces that have greeted us right here in Kantamanto. There are lots of tales people have been telling me, but let's start interacting with some of those here to find out what exactly they do here and what the story is. What are you saying?
Maxwell Otu.
Maxwell Otu. Max, then I will have.
Last time, my dear, and I toss school uniform so.
You now store now here for potty.
Packing machines in a machine in a go on a man.
Now also saying away I would say aha jatoha as I say over.
Last time you go at 12 midnight and I'm a sister about coming in a human of frame say a jato Kantamanto. I'm say and he or do I any money in Ashi. Any money in Ashi and he and I'm in a machine so a machine in a baby Ashi and he matter school uniform Nina and Amito school uniform a Pama de Aguho. School from a permanent aguho, Ninashi, Mitibank Misanka Bebia, Namabia and one Misanka. We did it quick quiet. Roughly and red in brain and Mepon Piano, and Bramco do Fiena. Mrs. Tabaco Frame say, yes, a jato Kantamanto. Unfortunately, as a Miss Samichi, Timbedu had member whom fire 10 anno, bear 2 hanum. Still, Omuye Bia, still, Anye. Yes, I bet you can say, another 10 as Suba had still. And here I would say no. All my property has lost almost 8 machines. If you have a club, 1,000, 4,000, almost 200 million. And the cheap. Intimate me can't make me as a babron idea. At first, I mean, I met me, I can't buy me the Bemanyami, Yamine Dini, Tibronia, you bet in Pepe. Quabraje, Pacho, yes, we are penny, had day put in our me pama dear. Opama dear. And I almost honey now, una udio many mana. A farm, Mimi woman, dear, men be doing any. Into a farm, a womb. Mimi what a sroha. Late 16. Late 16. Yo, auntie, then I would tell you, I say, and Nanopa, ya sorry, I asked him, yetini. A patch of bra, a tremono. Now, Cabese, now, tree, me, Tuabano. Yet, say, I say, Abesh. And you know, a summer, and she echo ye penny off your office or Emma wanted ye will be our now so ha. Emma never now so ye say, see, I tibi bisa yanka yakuma and to you, ne a jaishabia Emma. And it says, sending, say, I dear what boy who say, over far, a yasama yan so yakuma, eto you. I just say, Bibiama, I bet him say, and Najumi down, your baby frame say, me hashi. Me machine and watch industrial machine 8 and bundles make it about 50 bundles.
Counting the losses there, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been there this afternoon with a number of promises. Let me get to Lateef Idrisu, who was there for us to find out how exactly the Vice President says the concerns raised by these people will be addressed. Lateef, I'd like to start with the allegations being made by the traders that some people had actually forewarned that this was going to happen. Did this come up when the Vice President met them? Lateef, so I'm asking whether or not the allegations being made by some of the traders. Yes, Lateef, do you hear me?
I can hear you, Gifty.
Right. So I'm asking whether or not it came up, the allegations being made by the traders that some people had actually warned that there was going to be a fire at the Kantamanto market. Did it come up in the interaction between the Vice President and the traders there?
No, Gifty, that didn't come up. And that speculation about forewarning to the people here that there was going to be fire outbreak didn't come up here. In fact, the Vice President, when he entered, the first people he had interaction with were the leaders of the Kantamanto. 2 individuals, 2 young men came to him
and they gave him vivid description of how the fire started and how they got even the fire officers to come in to try and douse the fire. So that one has been dealt with. It didn't come up here. But the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, after observing the level of devastation here at Kantamanto, his initial words when he addressed members of the press here was that this is a human tragedy. He describes the outbreak as a human tragedy, something the administration has taken notice of, and he has announced that there's going to be a meeting on Friday. All stakeholders would be in attendance. Even his presence here, he had the National Security Minister and the Minister for the Interior and the Deputy NADMO boss, Abu Ramadan, plus many other officials of the National Fire Service in attendance here. He says going forward, come Friday, there's going to be a meeting at Jubilee House to fashion a plan for the administration to look at how much they would compensate the individuals who have been affected here going forward. Two things the Vice President announced. One, he says going forward the administration will look at rebuilding the Kantamanto market. So all these wooden structures that we see here at Kantamanto market, the Vice President says the long-term plan for the administration is to rebuild this market so that the wooden structure that have served as fuel for the fires over the years are completely moved away. Secondly, the Vice President also announced that there's going to be some level of compensation to the market women and men whose livelihoods, they went to sleep having a business, they woke up the next day and their livelihood is gone. They do not have any business, they do not have any livelihood. So in the meantime or in the immediate term, that is the major concern for the administration according to the Vice President. And so what he describes as some form of compensation will come up after Friday's meeting at the Jubilee House, Gifty.
Right. As we speak, Latif, and hopefully you do hear me once and for all on this one. As we speak, what is happening at the scene of the fire?
I can hear you, Gifty.
Great.
Okay, so Gifty, we have the markets, the men and the women, the traders, they are all trying to salvage, what has been left. But clearly, Gifty, looking at the time when the fire started up till now, you can say that they are trying in vain. They are trying in vain, trying to salvage what is left and standing by. Even as we visited the place, Gifty, I can tell you that we can still see smoke emanating from some of the makeshift structures at the epicenter, if you like, where the fire started. So they are just there. Those who are trying to salvage are trying. Those who are helplessly looking on are looking on, and the smoke is still raging on. I have the Greater Accra NADMO boss, and we just want to find out from him quickly what his unit is doing in their own way to prevent some of these avoidable fires at the markets. It's become one too many. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you.
Introduce yourself to our viewers.
My name is Archibald Kobnak, the Greater Accra NADMO Director. I think I agree with you. It's become one too many. And as a result, we're doing a lot of sensitization work. But I think that beyond sensitization work, it is important. And moving forward, I'm going to meet my regional minister so that working together with all the municipal and metropolitan assembly, I tell you that we had a meeting with all the works departments of the assembly, the health officers. We called some segments of the assembly people to a discussion, because the kind of work that we do, we work in collaboration with stakeholders, and the municipal, metropolitan and district assemblies are stakeholders in the way forward for some of these things. I'm going to involve the regional minister. He's here. He was at Odona. He's aware of what is going on around. And I think that is imperative. One of the critical things that we need to look at, especially going forward, is the issue of having even the access way within the markets. Because once the water tankers and the The fire tenders are coming in. Access way is a major problem to them.
Over and over the years. Access route to market.
Of course, and that's why I'm saying that it needs to have the involvement of the regional minister to give it a certain weight, so that working together with the assemblies, we can get there, we can get on the grounds and work with the various committees of the various markets in ensuring that people make way, so that we can have access in case of, we have issues of fire hydrants as well. Because if we have fire hydrants within the markets, immediately there's fire before even the call for fire service to come in. Some level of work will be done to bring the fire down. We'll also look at possibly having water tanks as well. Because the hydrants that we had, a lot of the hydrants, people are not working. Some water is not flowing through. We have situations where people have mounted containers and cemented the hydrants. We have illegal connections in the market, and so you
have a lot of work to do with all these things you have enumerated.
That's why I'm saying that critical of all of this is unfortunate that these things are happening. His Excellency the President was at Odona Market, the pedestrian mall. His Excellency the Vice President, he is asked that a meeting be called on Friday. And so we need that kind of high level involvement, and through the regional minister, to ensure that the various assemblies would also work with us the way we are supposed to work with them in ensuring that some of these things are done. And going forward, I think that all our market associations, we're going to have a program with them and have this.
That's where I was going.
And
involved are these market committees that
we're going to have. We of course, when we're doing sensitizations, we definitely will not jump into a market. We always meet with them. But of course, now we need to meet and have a more critical look at the situation and see how we can partner them, because they and some of the people are within the markets. For example, security within the markets, people who watch the marketplaces, we need to do a lot more work. They have issues with security, so that we can see how we collaborate with the police and the communities to have neighborhood watch to assist them. And so it's going to be a multifaceted approach in ensuring that some of these things are nipped in the bud.
Would NADMO come to the rescue of people who have lost their livelihoods overnight? I know the Vice President talked about, after Friday's meeting, government to fashion out a plan to sort of compensate them. Is NADMO thinking in that direction of maybe coming to the aid of people who they went to sleep with a business, they woke up, they don't have a business?
Of course, as NADMO is part of our work. And so I'm happy my Deputy Director General is here. The Director General himself is out, but he's aware of the situation. And so from here we're meeting. Of course, there are critical things that we need to put in place. One is to ensure that we do an assessment, okay? Because you can't do anything without a proper assessment to be able to determine whether person A is actually involved or person B is actually involved. Once those assessments are done, then like you're saying, immediate relief, we will also look at our strength and what we can be able to do within our means to assist and cushion them, whilst government at the government level would also be taking the steps. In the case of Circle, as you are aware, the traders themselves, they said they didn't want anything from NADMO, and so they were looking at what government will do. And of course, going forward, I mean, with the meetings with the MBSSI and the Maslocks and things, they are having some relief here and there to support them. So it's ongoing. And I can assure you that quickly, before even the assessment, we are also going to meet at that level to see what we can do. And then when our reports come, immediately we'll move in.
So I wish you well in your, endeavor to try and bring an end to the...
I think that what we're going to be doing, we're going to be involving you every step of the process. We'll involve you so that you know where we're going and how we are approaching it.
Thank you very much. So Ajbal is the Greater Accra NADMO boss, and he has been here with the Vice President and the ministers who accompanied him to have first-hand look at the level of devastation the fire has caused to businesses here at Kantamanto. I'm leaving you with the word of the Vice President that on Friday there will be a meeting and that will determine what steps in terms of compensation, how much government will give out to the affected, and also the rebuilding of the Kantamanto market is something that has come up strongly here during the Vice President's visit. This is Latif Idris reporting for Joy News.
Thank you very much, Latif Idris. There around you by stories coming up. Parliament suspends processes to approve the Public Universities Bill 2020 following a meeting between Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and various education sector stakeholders. We'll be getting you the details of how it all went down before the Vice President headed to the Kantamanto market. Also, nationwide demonstrations continue by supporters of the NDC. Today, we make stops in War and Tamale, where the party chairman has issued a 3-day ultimatum for results to be overturned if the protests are to stop. Also, NDC flag bearer John Mahama on his way to Techiman, where some of the parliamentary election results are still outstanding. Of course, we have some being contested by the NDC executive there. The pause is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. I'm Gifty Andopia. Join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. Remember, we're streaming live on YouTube and, of course, on our other social media handles. Now, Parliament has suspended processes to approve the Public Universities Bill 2020 following a meeting between Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and various education sector stakeholders. It happened this morning. Chairman of the Education Committee, William Kwetu, says copies of the new bill laid in Parliament in November were made available to the stakeholders at the meeting for them to study. He goes on to say that the new bill addresses about 90% of the concerns they had raised. The suspension of work on the bill is to allow time for the stakeholders to now study again the new version of the bill and revert to the committee by Tuesday with additional comments they may have. Mr. Kwetu says work on the bill will not resume until they get feedback from the stakeholders to come through. He, however, insists that the document being debated in Parliament addresses the issues that UTAG and other stakeholders are raising. Joseph Apoku Gakpo is our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent. He's joining me via Zoom. Hello, Joseph. Well, before we get to Joseph, take a look.
Yes, you are here and you follow with keen interest whatever we do in the chamber. And you know that it is not true that the Public University Bill is passed. Yesterday, what we did was a second reading of the bill. And I will say that the bill, as you know, went through a first presentation to Parliament. That was withdrawn and a new one laid. And so once a new one is laid, we'll have to, of course, the committee will have to consider it and bring a report to the plenary. So that is exactly what we did yesterday. So the bill is still under consideration. So the new one that has been laid and reported on is available for anybody to have a look at. What UTAG and other stakeholders of academia want to do or are seeking to know is what is in the new one. And that is what we have made available now. And so this morning, we met them, UTAG and other stakeholders, we met them and we gave copies of the new bill to them. In other words, the relayed one to them. They have to study it and bring their comments for consideration. And when we receive their comments, of course, during our second consideration of the committee, all the comments that of course be acceptable to all of us will be incorporated in the bill. So doing a second reading does not mean that we have passed the bill. And we have all agreed to certain conditions that have to be fulfilled before the bill, the Public University Bill, is passed. They have agreed to what we want to do. To be precise, UTAG, National UTAG, and the various universities, and maybe Convocation and other key players of academia were present at a meeting this morning, and they have all received copies of the new bill. And so if they go to consider it, or if they look at it and see that in fact, we met them here some time ago. The first issues that they brought up have been incorporated in this new bill, and we all come to a common ground, then of course the bill will be passed. We are working in faith with them. We don't want to bring any bill or pass any bill that those who are to be affected by the bill will have comments on. So that is the state of the bill now. It is not true that the bill has been passed. You are aware. But your other colleagues outside there who do not understand the process of Parliament will give it a different twist. So when you meet them, let them know that the bill is not passed. It is still under consideration. You know, we do a number of things during the consideration state, including taking comments from the outside public. And that's exactly what we have done. Yesterday, we only laid the second bill, or the related bill, to Parliament. And of course, it had to come with a report. So we are waiting for comments from everybody before consideration will be taken at the plenary of Parliament. So thank you so much.
Chairman, is that to say that the passage or otherwise of this bill is dependent on the input from these stakeholders?
Definitely. Definitely.
No, it is no. Is that what you're telling me?
Look, their inputs, I wouldn't say that all their inputs will be taken. But this bill here has taken into consideration most of the inputs that they made to us the first time the bill was laid in Parliament. And so I would say that this second bill is entirely or somewhat different from what we had first. It has considered a number of things. For instance, if we take the composition of the council, we had initially a 30-member council. Now it is 15. We had nominations, about 8 nominations from government. Now it is reduced to 5. So there are quite a number of things that have been changed based on the inputs they gave us. But they were not sure that these inputs have been incorporated in this one. That is why they are making that noise. And so the new copy has been given to them. They should study it and see whether the inputs they made are incorporated or not. And so the bill will be passed only after we have considered their new inputs when they bring them.
Talking about the government council, you talk about the fact that it's now 15, 5 from government. They still argue.
No, I'm not saying 5 from government. I'm saying the president or the government has 5 nominations.
5 nominations?
Yes.
They still argue that directly or indirectly, that will make up 9 out of the 15.
No.
For the other institutional representations.
No. Let them look at it and come back.
Finally from me, you talk about the fact that the committee will consider these inputs. At what stage will that be? Because after second reading, we are moving to consideration. That will happen in the plenary. Committee.
No, consideration state doesn't mean that you don't accept people's comments. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that you are only going to consider clause by clause what is there and make amendments. What to inform you to make those amendments? It is an input from everybody, from stakeholders, that will make you make those amendments. So we are still at the consideration stage.
Are you meeting them as a committee?
Well, we have met them. To me, a more powerful source have met them. That is beyond this committee. That is why we are saying that they should take it, go and consider it, and bring in their new groups.
Is consideration going to be suspension? It's going to suspend the constitution state until we finalize the
Yes, consideration at the plenary is suspended. That is on hold until we receive their inputs on a new bill.
What stopped you from consulting them before receiving them? That's why they said they are disappointed in the executive and, for that matter, the committee.
Well, I would say that printing of the new bill, okay, delayed. That's what I would say. And so yesterday was just delaying. And after that, we knew we were going to get the new bill and to be given to them, because that was a promise from me to them. And I knew I was going to do it before that time. But you see, all the input that they made when we met them here, those of you who were around, we used 1 week from Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. to about 8 p.m. every day to meet them. There were about 26 stakeholders. And they were all making the same input on various provisions. And everything has been considered. Of course, in consultation with the Ministry and GTEC, Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. A lot of work has gone into all this. And so to us, we think that, to the committee, we think that we have incorporated all their concerns. If they have any, they should bring them and then we'll consider them.
What timelines are you looking at now in terms of getting it?
Well, we threw this to them this morning, and they are saying that they will have to go and consult with their people. So they have to give us their timelines. So as I speak, I don't know when they are going to bring their listen. They promise that by next week Tuesday, they'll give us the time that they'll bring their inputs.
So just to be clear, the majority Parliament is not in a rush to get this passed.
At all. At all. There is no rush in this. At all.
When you say a more powerful source has met them, what do you mean?
Well, let me blunt here. The president is not in the nation. Acting president is the vice president. Vice president is the one who met them. Myself, the vice president, minister, GTech boss, that is Professor Lassan, and then the representative of academia. We all met this morning, 10 to about 11:30 a.m. So that is it, and that is the instruction from the acting president or the vice president. And so the vice president even wanted to know when they can bring their inputs. And they said they will have to go and consult with their people before giving us time. And so giving us time has been scheduled for Tuesday. So by Tuesday, they should give us time when they can also bring their inputs.
What happens if all these are not able to finish and the bill passes before Parliament?
I'm saying that the bill will not be passed until we receive their inputs. But what we have is what we have given them. For instance, Minister cited a bill that did not have pages 11 to something. Some of the clauses were even out. And so they were alarmed. They were thinking that that was what we have laid as a second bill. But that is not the case. That's not the case. You know, this is politics. Some people just went ahead, copied some parts of the bill, and added some new things to it, and said it as the bill that we have relayed in Parliament. That is far from the truth. That is not it.
William Kwetu chairs the Parliament Select Committee on Education. Let's go to Joseph Opoku Gakpo right now. Hello, Joseph.
Hello, Gifty.
Right. So, what was happening yesterday? Was that a discussion towards consideration or passage of the bill? Help us understand.
So, what was happening yesterday is what we call the second reading of the bill. Now, what happens is when a bill comes to Parliament for approval, it's laid on the floor, and that's described as the first reading of the bill, where the title of the bill is read out by the whoever the representative of the clerk is, and then after that, the minister presenting it bows to the speaker, and then it's assumed that that document has been presented to the House. That's called the first reading of the bill. When that gets done, then the speaker refers the bill to a particular committee. Now, the committee goes to look at it, interrogate it, invite stakeholders for deliberations on it, and the committee then returns days after, weeks after, months after, with a report on the bill, recommending first of all whether the House should approve or not approve the bill. And then additionally, if the committee has recommendations on changes that should be made to the bill, that list of changes are then attached to the report that the committee is bringing. Now, on the day that the committee comes back to the House with its report, that's what we call the second reading of the bill, where the chairman of the committee in question, in this case the Education Committee, goes ahead to read the said report of the committee recommending whether the House should approve or not approve the document, and then list out the changes. And then at that second reading, the House then does a debate on the bill. But that debate is not substantively on the content of the bill. The House then debates the principles as far as the bill is concerned. In this case, we know the fundamental principle has to do with appropriate management of the public universities that we have in the country. Other bills have other issues when it comes to the principles as far as the bill is concerned. Now, after that deliberation and debate on the principles of the bill, which is the second reading, then the discussion on the bill is then suspended, and then the House then comes back to do what is called consideration of the bill. It's at the consideration stage that the recommendations that the committee made in terms of changes to the bill can then be done. That's the stage that they describe as the insert and delete stage, where the specific items are taken out of the bill or introduced into the bill. MPs, apart from the committee's reports, can recommend changes to the bill. Usually that's the longest duration in terms of how the bill may drag in the House. Once that is done, usually over some days, then the third reading of the bill can be done, and then you can say that bill has subsequently been passed or approved by the House. As far as the Public Universities Bill is concerned, after it had been laid on the floor of the House and then subsequently deliberated on by the Committee on Education, yesterday they came back to the House to do the second reading when they presented the report in terms of the Education Committee and made recommendations on what changes should be seen. But that final stage, which is consideration where the changes will be made, has actually not come off yet. So we are nowhere close to getting this particular bill approved, and it's that third stage of consideration where Parliament will make changes to the bill that the chairman of the Education Committee, William Koiti, is now indicating has been suspended until they've gotten the necessary input from the various stakeholders, and then they can then take the bill through the consideration stage where specific propositions of changes to the specific bill will be made, after which there will be the third reading before then it gets passed eventually.
I see. What happened in Parliament today was a briefing from the meeting that was held between the Vice President and the committee. Was this also discussed in Parliament, and how do the members of Parliament take this?
So on the floor of the House itself, this hasn't come up, because after the second reading, where the House discussed the principles of the bill was done, then the next stage will be for the majority leader to then set an appropriate date for the committee of the chairman to then begin moving the various motions to request that the House approves amendments to the bill. So that's usually left at the discretion of leadership in terms of when that should begin. The leadership hasn't indicated that they would want that to begin anytime soon. So on the floor of the House, there was absolutely no conversation at all on this bill. It's as if the processes are continuing, because now what the Speaker is waiting for is for the chairman of the committee to indicate to the majority leader that the House is ready for the consideration, and then in the next few days, in the next few weeks, the House can do that. So until that time gets there, no discussion on the floor itself will begin as far as this bill is concerned. But on the fringes, other MPs have been responding to this said indication that following the meeting earlier today, that third stage in terms of consideration of the bill has been suspended until further notice. For example, Mr. Bernard Ahiafo, who is a legal practitioner and a member of the Education Committee, has been insisting that he thinks even the new bill that the House is dealing with still has fundamental issues that run in contravention to the Constitution of the nation, for which he thinks it will still be inappropriate for the House to go ahead and approve it. And he goes on to make the point that adequate consultation is what they are all for, and so if that's the decision that the chairman of the committee has taken, that following the advice of the Vice President, they are pulling brakes on the consideration stage until necessary consultations are done, the minority side are all for that particular further consultation.
Well, Joseph, I'll say very big thanks. Unless there's anything else that happened in Parliament that we need to be updated on, we'll call it a day. Joseph Opoku Gakpo there, he's our parliamentary affairs correspondent, bringing us up to speed on that bill there. Well, away from that, General Secretary of the governing NPP, John Boydu, says it's been very difficult reaching out to the sacked former MP, Andrew Siama, to join the NPP side of the House in the next Parliament. According to John Boydu, he had to speak to people around Mr. Siama to persuade him to join the NPP or to rejoin the NPP. Mr. Boydu insists the party has no regrets dismissing the MP.
It will be daft if we don't do that, because we have 137 as we speak now. It is one constituency outstanding, Senate West. And if the decision is taken, it will win anyway, so it will be 138. It is still slim. You understand? So if you have an MP who used to be an independent candidate who used to be a member of parliament of your party and had indicated time without number that he still wants to be part of the NPP.
You expelled him from the party.
It doesn't matter. But what is important is that he forfeited. He forfeited. Of the House? Please, he forfeited his membership. This is normal process, and he had indicated that you still want to work with us. Why wouldn't we try to extend an olive branch to make sure that he comes back? But he's not coming back as an MPP member. But the moment he do that, he must resign as an independent candidate and declare the seat vacant for a by-election. So he's coming as an independent candidate, sitting with us. if he agrees. So that's how the process.
But have you personally called him as the party executive?
I've spoken to a lot of people around him. Now he's the toast of everybody, so it's difficult reaching him. But can you believe that he's with my schoolmates?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went to Christ again, but okay. Your job is said that you must just stick to your job. If National Executive Committee take a decision, you don't say that this is your schoolmate, this is a friend, this is the no. You just stick to what the dictates of the job is. That's how we find ourselves, and we will continue to do that.
So you only admit him back to the party after 4 years, is that understanding?
Yes, if you want to be part of the party, yes. By his standing as an independent candidate, it will be difficult for him to say that he's now a member of the New Patriotic Party. Then it means that he loses his standing as an independent, because he was voted for by the constituents to remain as independent, and he may want to do so, but it does not prevent him from joining outside of Parliament to work with us and all that. Yeah.
Final question, upon probably reflection, would you say the party acted in a very harsh manner in terms of the former?
I don't think so. It is something that as a party we need to discourage. We believe that we need to be able to resolve our issues internally. We need to have a situation where members of Parliament are expected to act in the highest standards of the party in terms of agreeing to the rules and regulations and going through the motions and all that. Because if ordinary members are even expected through processes of the party to still remain, how much more somebody who is an honorary member of Parliament? It's unfortunate we are at this situation, but I think we take our decisions as and when it comes up here.
General Secretary of the NPP, John Bwedu, there. Well, Andrew Zamwa-Kwesiama has been responding to some of these concerns. Speaking with journalists a short while ago in Parliament, the former MP said he will be joining the NPP side for the 8th Parliament.
Then to me, I wasn't happy. Why should I also decide to request or make such demand? I've never done that. What I am looking for is to make sure that everything the party does is open, transparent, for everybody to see that this is the way we are going. That is what I am looking for. I am not going to make specific demands that.
So just to be clear, you've taken that decision already that you are joining the NPP side as far as the next Parliament.
That's what I said. From the chiefs, the queen mothers, and the good people of the former constituency, this is what they are telling me, that in spite of whatever happened, I should still be with the family. So
the NPP candidate had indicated that attempts to reach you have proven futile. Are you willing to work with the party in the constituency?
I told you there were a lot of pressure on me. So immediately after the elections, a lot of security issues also on me. So all my phones were off. So I wouldn't have any reason to doubt whether he actually made an attempt to reach me. But the fact of the matter is that he's my senior brother. The contest, the game is over. Obviously, we shall meet and discuss the way forward.
Do you think Professor Michael Kwe treated you fairly by kicking you out of the...
I've answered this question. I've answered it. I said, as far as I'm concerned, the decision was not fair. I was not happy about it. But what can you do? It's part of life. You take it in your strides and move on.
Do you hold anything against him?
I don't hold anything against anybody.
Waiting formally to apologize to you?
Not yet, but verbally a lot of friends and communication has gone on. Not formally in the form of Somehow, yes.
Who exactly has apologized to you verbally?
No.
Okay, so just to get a sense, for example, has the president reached out to you yet for a conversation?
I understand the president was trying to reach out to me personally, but like I said, immediately after the elections, my phone has been off. So he made it through some people who reached out to me.
said
have you reached out back to him?
To you. Have they given you any offers that might influence?
Offer is not important in my life. What is important in my life is principle.
As the most sought after, if you like, Fomina MP there. This is still the pulse with me, Gifty and Nopel. Take a very quick break. When we return, we do one last stop in Parliament to tell you some of the new faces coming in. We want to find out what do they bring on board. This is still the pulse. Do join me when I return. This, of course, is your election headquarters. So every election year comes with faces or new faces in Parliament. And these parliamentary candidates are chosen by the people for certain constituencies as a result of their lack of confidence in the previous ones, you could say that, or perhaps disbelief in the other contenders. Now, this 2020 parliamentary and presidential election is no different from others, actually. It has been slightly different. One of such new faces in Parliament is Vincent Assefuor. He won the NPP. He won for the NPP in Otafo in the Ashanti region. Vincent is one of the new faces that will be profiling as we go along. And we're starting with him. Vincent, it's good to have you. Welcome.
Thank you, my dear. How are you?
I'm good, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Of course, we're not talking about education, but how has it been since you won the seat?
Well, let me say a very good afternoon to my cherished viewers and to everyone in the Otafo constituency. We've been taking it cool. If you remember, on Monday when we had the elections, around 8:30, the good people of Otafo constituency knew the results as far as parliamentary was concerned. And for that matter, we had to wait for the presidential results to be in. And so we waited till Wednesday when the Electoral Commission finally declared. So it was around that time that we finally jubilated in a modest manner, because the people who also contested alongside myself are good people of Otafo. They are also the sons of the soil, and for that matter, we had to do that in.
It was pretty much a done deal for you, wasn't it, from the beginning?
Well, if you check the architecture of the constituency since 1992, the good people of Otafo constituency, that is Tafo, Pankrono, Adabraka, Inshaeso, has always been loyal to the New Patriotic Party.
So it was a done deal for you?
I felt it, but sometimes, if you don't do your things, well, the people will punish you, and it is evident in some of the constituencies that we've seen across the country. And so even though we were not having any doubt, or we were not oblivious of the fact that we had won already, but we had to also do the hard work so that you will be able to make sure that you widen the gap.
Which is what you seem to have done, 44,000 plus votes, whereas Samudin had about 14,000 votes. There was another lady, by the way.
Yes.
There she is. Which party was she?
GCPP. No, that's
GCPP. GCPP there. What do you think worked for you, apart from the fact that you stood on the ticket of the NPP, and because this seat has consistently been won by the party?
Well, if you check the number of registrants in 2016, we had about 76,000 people registered in the Otafo constituency. Dr. Antonio Kutose polled a little over 44,000 in 2016.
Okay.
Unfortunately for us, when we were registering in 2020, we had about 64,000, which means that there's a drop of about 12,000 voters. Now, a number of things account for that reduction. Quite a number of people who were leaving the constituency, because if you come to Otafo constituency as we speak, very difficult for you to be able to get a land to build or something like that. So anybody who now feels that he's better off and wants to leave, rather moves to places like Sepe, Brookroom, and the other places. And so the drop affected the general elections in Otafo constituency. However, I polled 42,000 out of the 64,000, which means that we were short of about 2,000 as compared to 2016. However, if you do the analysis very well, if in 2016 we had 76,000 voters, and Dr. Antonio Kutose polled 44,000, and in 2020 we had 64,000, and I polled about 42,000, then clearly you could see that if we had the 76,000, we could have been able to do better. And so
I see the analysis you're trying to make is that you've got the people on your side, and I hope so. But at the end of the day, the impact of your work is what the people are looking forward to. Hopefully, it's not just about the party. What is the plan? What is your plan to, first of all, address the concerns or the issues that persist in this area? And if you can give us those issues, list them in, let's say, 3 blocks for us. How do you intend to deal with those in Parliament?
Well, I will deal with about 3 issues. One will be on health matters. The second will be on education, and the other probably on entrepreneurship. Now, when I worked in the constituency, I made sure that I speak to every Tom, Dick, and Harry who was interested in engaging me. Now, one of the serious issues, or if you like, crucial issues that I encountered was the fact that everybody wanted to make sure that there is this maternity block in the Old Trafford Government Hospital. That was commenced by Dr. Antonia Kotose in 2007. Now, when the NPP left government, at the time that he was leaving, it was about 80%. When he left, the building has been there without any sort of addition whatsoever to it. And so the good people of Old Trafford constituency has always been on the neck of every or any parliamentary candidate, whether it be the NPP or the NDC. In fact, it was very critical as far as our manifestos were concerned.
So the Old Trafford Hospital?
Old Trafford Government Hospital.
Government Hospital.
There is a maternity block.
Your plan is to finish it?
Absolutely. But if you check the parliamentary Hansard, I think in November, you realize that a loan has been secured from Czech Republic, that finances shouldn't be a problem as far as the completion of the maternity block in Old Trafford is concerned. So that's a project you're going to finish? You have to follow it within what time? Within about 2-3 years, we should finish it. I see. We'll be here to because the finances are ready. We've been able to secure the funds from Czech Republic. So it's one thing that, in terms of health, we will be able to do. You talked about education. Well, because you work at the education ministry. We have worked with the education ministry for quite some time, and quite a number of the people, as far as education is concerned, are motivated, especially because they found one of their own to have been elevated to the level of a PRO of the Ministry of Education. And so one thing that you want to do, apart from inspiring them, is to also ensure that people who are also in the Old Trafford constituency will be able to get to a level that you are. And so poverty should not be an issue for anybody not to be able to get access as far as tertiary education is concerned. So what's the plan? Some scholarship scheme? Apart from the scholarship scheme, you need to make sure that you actually engage them for them to choose proper or better courses that will suit them. Because you see, if students going to school, the fact that a person... I just want to address, I see that you're breaking it down, but I just want to address them in blocks. Yes. So you're looking at in health, in terms of health, you're looking at the Old Trafford Government Hospital and completing it because the funds have been secured. Absolutely. So that's a done deal. We're talking about the education. You said in terms of education, you said apart from scholarship schemes, you're looking... What you're describing sounds to me like mentorship. Absolutely. Okay, so mentorship that provides some guidance for the youth, there. But you can provide the guidance, but if they don't have the money to keep themselves in school, and if it's not about free SHS, which they might get through freely. Don't forget that as part of the NPP's manifesto, the government put in it that we are now going to ensure that there's free tuition at the level of the tertiary education. So what is your plan for your constituency as far as that's concerned? Because I've run out of time, briefly I would make sure that because it is the responsibility of the Member of Parliament to ensure that there's some amount of betterment in the lives of his people, I will make sure that there are scholarship schemes for their people. Apart from that, Dr. Antonia Kotose also left a library in the constituency. We will have to modernize it and add an e-library to it so that students, or if you like, the youth, especially in the constituency, who would want to have access to books, as far as e-library is concerned, is also being achieved. Okay, now, this is probably my last question. I just want you to put it together for me, for those who are in Old Trafford today, who are expecting you to be in Parliament for them in the next Parliament. If you were to meet them, what is that summary of your intent for them? That what can you say is your intent for them in summary? Well, I think that we will need to build up a society that will be a harmonized one, of course, because the aspirations of the good people of Otafo constituency will have to be seen in the bills and policy considerations that we made in Parliament. And for that matter, this is the basic responsibility of a member of Parliament. And I am promising them that the aspirations, the hopes, and the visions, if you like, the missions of the good people of Otafo constituency is seen in all bills that is made in Parliament, policy considerations that is made by state-owned enterprises, or if you like, the government by itself. The aspirations of the good people of Otafo constituency will be seen in them, and I promise that.
Well, we'll be here. It will be a long 4-year journey. We'll be here to remind you of the things that you have said, and I'm sure that Otafo, the way we've seen Ghanaian votes these days, I'm sure they will know what to do.
There's nothing like stronghold anymore.
I hope so. I really hope so. Yes. Well, you're talking about Hohoi, but anyway, if we had the time, we'll probably be able to talk a bit more about this. Vincent Esefo is a member of Parliament elect for Otafo. We're talking about the new faces going into Parliament and what they present. We'll be talking more of them as we go along. Now, hundreds of supporters of the National Democratic Congress in the Wa Central constituency of the Upper West region have hit the streets demanding recollation of the December 7 presidential results. In a petition that was read before handed to the Upper West EC Director, the Wa Central Communication Officer of the NDC, Mohammed Tando, stated that the results declared by the EC were fraught with several inconsistencies and anomalies, then they need to be recollated. Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Wa.
They came in their hundreds, young and old. Upper West Region's NDC protesters demanding greater transparency and recollation of the 2020 presidential results. They chanted on top of their voices, "No Mahama, no peace."
We want justice in this country, so we want the reality. They should reveal everything so that we all understand. If not, we will accept. We will not accept this. We will not accept this. We want justice in this country. We want justice. If not, we want democracy. If not, we will leave. We will never ever leave this thing. We want Mahama. We want Mahama. No Mahama, no peace. We need justice in Ghana.
Throughout the 3-hour demonstration, the protesters raised a two-finger salute, a symbol of the position of John Dramani Mahama on the ballot paper, and also to draw sympathies from bystanders. There were few dozens when they started, but when they got onto the major streets, the number steadily grew into hundreds, impeding the easy vehicle traffic in town. Draped in either red or black shirts with few party paraphernalia worn over the necks and arms, they spilled all major streets in the regional capital before heading to the region's EC office to present a petition laying bare the reasons of their demonstration.
This petition to reaffirm the NDC's position that we unequivocally reject the presidential results as declared by the EC chairperson, Madam Jane Mensah, on the 9th of December 2020. It is our considered view that Nana Akufo-Addo was not validly elected and could not be deemed as the president-elect for the Republic of Ghana. Consequentially, we wish to make the following demands on the Electoral Commission. 1, to do a proper audit of all the presidential results as they emanate from the various polling stations across the country and declare the true winner of the 2020 presidential elections to reflect the will of the people. And we are confident that when this audit is done, President John Dramani Mahama will be declared as the winner of the 2020 presidential elections. 2, we also call on the EC to reconsider a fresh collation of the results of the Lambuse constituency to ascertain the true will of the parliamentary elections in that constituency. Going forward, we are calling on the Electoral Commission to recruit competent and impartial electoral officers to man future public elections.
Upper West Director of the EC, Ali Osman Adamu, received a petition.
To the chairperson, I hope that all the issues that we
having access to the forecourt of the EC office was not gotten on a silver platter as the protesters struggled with the police who had already marched up at the gate. They demanded to enter the premises. The police, armed to their teeth, wouldn't budge, resulting in heated argument between the two sides. While the arguments ensued at the blind side of the police, some of the supporters started burning cars, firing of firecrackers and knockouts, which resulted in the burning of the bush. Personnel of the Ghana National Fire Service, whose office is about 100 meters away, were called but were misdirected to the EC's office at Nakore, which is about 8 kilometers away. The police present tried to fill the gap using leaves of the trees. By the time the Ghana National Fire Service got their bearings right, they had little to do. Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam.
And our supporters demand recollation of the results. A non-governmental organization which is into generation, dissemination and use of research and data, the Research and Grant Institute of Ghana says computational errors by the Electoral Commission taints the credibility of the announced 2020 presidential results. A statement signed by the group calls on the Electoral Commission to provide explanation on what was responsible for the miscalculation of the presidential results by the chairperson, Jean Mensah. Joining me in studio now is Executive Director of the Research and Grant Institute of Ghana, Dr. Samuel Ajololo. Dr. Ajololo, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So, first of all, the EC has explained that there was no miscalculation. The point they make is, if you take the announcement that was made on the day of the declaration, it was the total vote cast that was, if you like, mispronounced or misannounced, but it didn't affect the results that each candidate gets. I mean, what do you see from where you sit?
Right. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your listeners. So if the EC is saying there is no miscalculation, that is a total lie. On the 9th of December, the EC announced the total valid vote cast to be 13,434,754. On that basis, there was a distribution for the votes that each presidential candidate actually got. And that went with the corresponding percentages. It is on that basis that Akufo-Addo got 51.9 something percent. And so he was declared as the president-elect. Now,
this was on the 9th.
This was on the 9th. So clearly, the EC admitted that there was an error. And then in the press release by the EC on the 10th of December, it was announced that the EC inadvertently used the total vote cast as the total valid vote cast on the 9th. Now, granted that is true, and granted that the mistake was relating to the total vote cast as against the total valid vote cast, they were expecting that if we add the votes as announced by the EC that each candidate got on the 9th, we expect that that vote should tally with what the EC produced on the 10th.
Okay. Unfortunately,
that was not so. In fact, when we added the vote that the candidate got as announced by the EC on the 9th, we got 13,121,101. However, the revised figure released by the EC indicate that the total valid vote cast, which was distributed among the candidates, was 13,000, in fact, was not up to the figure that we got. For the EC to arrive at the new figure, there were some structural changes to the votes or to the vote that each candidate got as was announced on the 9th. In that particular case, you will see that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had an increase of 174 votes. Okay. John Dramani Mahama had a decrease of 1,707 votes. Nana Akufo-Addo had a decrease of 63. But each candidate had a decrease. So the fundamental question that we seek to ask is, if indeed the miscalculation or the error was limited to the total vote cast as against the total valid votes, then what is the basis for the recalculation for the addition and the subtraction of the votes of the candidate as announced by the EC. So on this basis, we think that the whole process needs more explanation. It is not enough to come and release the summary result. It is important that we understand what resulted in that error in the first place.
The changes.
And the processes you took. Errors are bound to happen, we admit. If you're a data scientist, you can admit that there are petty mistakes that sometimes happen that you may not know.
Of course, it depends on the margin of error.
Exactly. But the important thing is the steps you take to address the error.
So right now, what exactly do you demand, or are you demanding from the Electoral Commission? And have you reached out to them yourself?
Yes, so we are demanding several things. First is to understand what accounted for the error. And that is important because the EC has structures that it works with. And these structures, I think, are robust enough to be able to absorb the EC from such a computational error. In fact, results are collated at the are added at the police station, collated at the constituency level.
Yeah. Then this time at the regional level.
Sent to the regional level before to the national level. So each of these steps are enough, should have enough computational machinery to be able to detect these errors. And so by the time the data get to the EC, it's a function of creating the cell for Akufo-Addo, creating the cell for Mahama, and they're populating the cells as the figures come.
Yeah.
So for us to be seeing such an error at the national level is actually a worrying situation. So we hope to understand why.
Okay.
And then two, how was the mistake detected? Was it an internal check or it was an external prompt? Were they prompted by some external people that no, the figures released were not correct, or they themselves going through their things spotted it? And most importantly, what step was taken to correct these anomalies? And also, what resulted in the structural changes in the vote that the candidate got, such that some have increments and others have a decrease?
Have you reached out to the EC? That was a question that I asked earlier, because, I mean, these are legitimate concerns, but the only people who can answer is the EC. Do you have plans to reach out to them directly to get these answers?
Oh, yes. We have plans to reach out to the EC directly. In fact, we even think that we don't have to reach out to them because they know that there is so much stake in this election. And the least thing they could do is to create a sense of doubt about the result. And so I was expecting that following the release of the summary result on the 10th, it's either a press statement or some stakeholder meetings or some town hall meeting where they will take stakeholders through the process, what happened, and the steps that were taken.
By way of explanation.
It will carve a lot of nerves and tensions that we have in the system.
Okay, I see. Let me take your very final words. I mean, the EC hasn't obviously done what you said. It has, provided the correction, so to speak, on their website. And anytime that we have engaged the EC on any of our shows, they have, on their part, explained. You've made your intentions clear that you intend to reach out to them. Apart from that, what time frame are you looking to work within otherwise, so that it doesn't turn out to be concerns put out there and just left as such?
So we're reaching out to the EC by close of this week.
By close of this week, okay. We'll be here to get the response as well and to share it with the rest of the world.
Sure.
Thank you very much for coming through. Dr. Samuel Ajolulu there. He's head of the Research and Grant Institute of Ghana. They've been doing some computation and they're asking for explanation of the changes in the figures as announced by the Electoral Commission. They've indicated their plans to reach out to the EC and we'll get those answers. Well, on the back of that, go to court to have your issues regarding the 2020 election addressed. Civic Forum and Institute for Democratic Governance are urging the National Democratic Congress after the party rejected the outcome for the 2020 election to, as you heard, go to court. Speaking at a news conference this morning to address issues that came up after the election, the CSOs noted that it is only the courts that can iron out whatever issues the NDC has concerning the just concluded election. My colleague Kwekwa Sante has more in this report.
The Institute for Democratic Governance and Civic Forum Initiative are urging the National Democratic Congress and its leader, former President John Mahama, to head to the court to challenge the outcome of the 2020 elections if they have any issues. Here is Dr. Angela Dwamina-Boaje speaking on behalf of the CSOs.
As we have stated before, carrying out demonstrations and going to court are not mutually exclusive nor contradictory. Legal recourse may be pursued even as peaceful demonstrations are carried out. Therefore, we join the voices of the sections of the public to urge the NDC to present their concerns to the courts for legal redress. We wish to emphasize in this regard that going to court does not amount to a lost cause. We fully appreciate that the aggrieved parties may be concerned over the length of time required in pursuing court cases, and the fact that during this time, the processes of swearing in the president and parliamentarians will take place.
The opposition NDC has rejected the outcome of the 2020 presidential polls, which declared President Akufo-Addo as winner of the 2020 election. Former President Mahama described the election as flawed and the results fictitious. IDEC and the Civic Forum Initiative wants full police protection for NDC protesters across the country who are demonstrating against the result.
First and foremost, we wish to state that going to court is not contradictory to peaceful demonstrations. Demonstrate when they disapprove about some national development. Members of political parties, therefore, have the right to public protest and demonstration. They have the right to express themselves through demonstrations, so long as their demonstrations are peaceful. To ensure that their demonstrations remain peaceful, they must, however, secure police protection and ensure that their demonstrations are not infiltrated by agents of provocation, agents provocateurs, who may seek to incite acts of violence in the course of otherwise peaceful protests. To this end, we urge sympathizers of the NDC to secure police protection for their demonstrations. We appeal to opponents of the NDC to keep away from the NDC's demonstrations so as to avoid aggravation that could degenerate into violence.
Meanwhile, Executive Secretary of IDEC, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, also responded to John Mahama's call for an independent audit of the pink sheets.
I wanted to know how that will be done because of the situation we find ourselves in. But if you look back, the EC has asserted its independence in situations that usually you might think that, okay, it's going to dialogue, it's going to find a political agreement on how what steps should be taken forward. But working through IPAC has been very difficult, you know that. And sometimes IPAC has even had to take votes on critical issues that needs to be resolved. So given what transpired before the elections and where we've gotten to, what if the EC does not respond positively to what they've said or doesn't take action on that?
Still on election-related matters, she was not a voter but quite active in the politics of Ododo. That's according to the family of 15-year-old Rita Otu, who died in a shooting incident at the constituency during the December 7 polls. Rita is one of 2 teenagers who died in this year's election. Now, the family tells my colleague Ernest Meno they want support to bury her as that could help her mother come to terms with the situation.
We're here now at Bukum to speak to the family of one of the victims. Aside Emmanuel, who was also shot, there was a young lady, 15 years of age, Rita, who was also shot and died eventually. We'll speak to the mother of the 15-year-old and some relatives here at Bukum.
After I had voted, I decided to go do business because I'm a single parent. I have no one to help me. Soon after I returned from the market, I heard people screaming. They said my daughter was dead, but I couldn't believe it. So I followed up to the hospital, and indeed, I saw my daughter was dead.
Kolibu, play cash on the avenue, le lembile, le no cash.
Rita's grandmother believes she was shot multiple times on the chest.
Come on, I
was about to take a nap when someone told me that my granddaughter had been shot dead. They asked that I come along with them, but I couldn't, so they showed me a picture of my girl. It was her. She had several bullet wounds on her chest. My granddaughter is dead.
The families want the two parties, the NPP and the NDC, to take swift action and help them bury their daughter.
We're celebrating the supposed victory of the NPP. She supports the NPP even though her mother sympathizes with the NDC. None of the parties have been here to mourn with us. They should help us bury her. We plead with them.
Nebanga me aka mami eke na me fa me Paul NDCM ni mi MPP no ji fi aga no mi ni yale no na bile nyense na support mi ni mu MPP ayanyi no ina bile ana le bi ni je na kana sane ana le na kan won panye fai wani wo fun agbeken ta wo na afun.
She rest in peace. This is still The Pulse with me, Gifty and Opia. A quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. The flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, is in Techiman. My colleague Erastus Asari Donko has been following that story. He joins us via Zoom with more. Hello, Erastus.
Yeah, Gifty.
Erastus, so do tell us what the former president has been doing since he arrived in Techiman.
Well, the former president and the flag bearer of the NDC, ex-president John Dramani Mahama, has been in Techiman at least for the last 1 hour. He went to the Wenchi Government Hospital where he paid a visit to the victims of last week's shooting at the collation center, that is Bruno Champim Hall, and he has been paying a visit to them. Shortly, we came from Wenchi, and currently a crowd has gathered in here waiting for him to address them. Currently, we have the chairman of the NDC, Mr. Kusuan Pofo. We have the General Secretary of the NDC, John Celestia Dunketia, and a number of MP-elects are currently here waiting for the former president to arrive to address the crowd. So that is what is happening here at the moment.
All right, Erastus, we'll leave you to follow that story, and we'll get back once he starts addressing the team, once he starts addressing the people who are meeting with him there.
Did you know that the number of COVID-19 cases in Ghana is going up gradually? This is largely because of the relaxation in the COVID-19 preventive protocols. The Ghana Medical Association is calling on all Ghanaians to observe the necessary preventive measures. Let's wear our face masks when we have to do that. Let's observe the necessary social and physical distances. And above all, let's observe the necessary hand hygiene. Be responsible and keep safe. Thank you.
320 deaths so far due to COVID-19. 48,055 confirmed cases at present. Over 500 active cases confirmed. Many more have not reported for diagnosis, and they live among us, in our homes, our churches, our restaurants, our offices. Would you help prevent this second wave? as many countries in Europe are experiencing second waves. Let's take to the COVID-19 prevention protocols. Observe strict hand hygiene, wear your face mask, observe social distancing.
Keep your distance. Physical distance is still a must if we must avoid a second wave of COVID-19. Think twice before you join a crowd. Is there enough space for adequate social distancing? Before you speak to anyone, take 3 steps back. They can still hear you.
So as you saw there, here in Ghana, the Medical Association is now warning of consequences if we continue to downplay the importance of COVID-19 protocols. In Germany, hundreds of people continue to die from the pandemic, and it's a battle between reactions to save lives and opening up to save the economy. Today is the first day of Germany's hard lockdown. Let's understand the situation a bit more with Thomas Parrow, who is correspondent with our partners DW. He spoke to my colleague Mavia Uswabwaji earlier.
He has experienced record numbers of infections and deaths in the past fortnights. We're also told that intensive care units are filling up. Share the numbers with us as it has been recorded.
Today, Germany begins a lockdown that has been described as a strict lockdown, as a hard lockdown. And that first day actually comes hand in hand with also grim numbers for Germany. Over 27,000 new infections in the last 24 hours. And what is more important and probably more shocking as well is the fact that Germany recorded nearly 1,000 deaths in the last 24 hours. This is a record, and this is something that has authorities particularly concerned. And at the same time, this is something that reveals why authorities had to impose these new restrictions that start today, that will go through the Christmas period and until the beginning of next year. These numbers, by the way, are not only numbers that have happened in the last few days. If you look, for example, at statistics over a certain period of time, you will see that Germany has experienced 11 consecutive working days with over 400 coronavirus deaths daily. So that gives you an idea of how difficult, of how dramatic the situation is here in Germany right now.
And Thomas, what are Germany lockdown measures?
Germany had from the beginning of November a partial lockdown, or a lockdown light, which basically saw restaurants, bars, museums and other similar facilities closed, while at the same time schools remained open and shops remained open. But that didn't bring the results that authorities had expected. In fact, it is now proved that exponential growth returned to Germany, hence the need for stricter measures. The new hard lockdown essentially means that everything that is considered non-essential will have to shut. Also, schools will have to close. So essentially what it means is that people who want to buy their Christmas presents will have to basically do it online or buy them in the supermarket, because supermarkets and pharmacies are obviously still open because they are considered essential shops. But otherwise, Germans have been told to reduce contacts to an absolute minimum. There are very small exceptions for the Christmas days because German authorities are aware that obviously people here want to meet their relatives. There are also restrictions there, but still people are allowed to meet their relatives, their closest relatives, during the Christmas days. But apart from that, it is to an absolute minimum. The message is clear. People have to reduce contacts more than what they did before.
Thomas, Germany is a country that cherishes its Christmas traditions. What have people been saying about these strict lockdown measures?
Germany's Christmas traditions are not only very important here, they're also well known internationally. You may know the famous Christmas markets or some of the food that is eaten here also in the Christmas season. Well, there are no Christmas markets, obviously. You can't even drink alcohol outside. So before you had, for example, some stalls where you could get mulled wine. That is no longer the case. So basically people are being told to remain indoors, to remain at home. And this is something that has affected people people. I would say that most people are aware and see the need for stricter measures, yet at the same time, a new poll that was revealed today mentioned that around 80% of Germans regret the fact that those stricter measures were not imposed a few weeks ago. In other words, they are criticizing in particular the fact that Germany put in practice this so-called partial lockdown, which did not bring the effects that authorities had hoped for. So on the one hand, I would say there is a certain understanding from the majority of the population. At the same time, there is certain criticism that these measures were not imposed before.
And Thomas, interestingly, Britain and the US have started using vaccination programs, vaccines that interestingly were developed in Germany. How about Germany itself?
Well, that is a very important point that you mentioned, and there is certain criticism here in the country as to why the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which was developed in part by a German company, BioNTech, with funds in part by the German government, is first being distributed in other countries and not necessarily in Europe. The authorization to roll out a vaccine here in Germany is not something that can be decided entirely in Germany. It is something that is decided by a European agency. And what the German government has been doing is putting pressure on that European agency for the agency to make quicker. That the agency was expected to reveal its decision by the end of the year, and German authorities have actually pressed for them to do it before Christmas.
Certainly, too many people dying of COVID-19 there. That's why the Ghana Medical Association wants us to be more careful. That will be all for me. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. There is more news at myjoyonline.com. If you do log on, and I'll urge you to log on and share our links. Have a good day and enjoy.